to analysts picking against their team. That wasn't the case this week. You look at NFL Network's panel, 9 of the 10 analysts picking the 49ers. People are saying they should dominate the Rams. Me, Suneil, and Marco in this fun roundtable are going to discuss the Week 2 matchup for the 49ers, as well as some interesting storylines around the NFL and around the 49ers that came up recently, all after this.
Let's go get him. Let's go get him today, man. Let's go. Hey, dominate on 3. 1, 2, 3, dominate.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the program. And you knew that with game day coming up, you had to see these three faces again. I'm your host, Rohan Chakravarthi here, joined by So Real Suneil, as well as Marco. How y'all doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic. I do want to shout out, even though I know me and Rohan might look Hispanic, we are not, and we want to shout out our boy Marco and all the Latinos and Hispanics all around supporting the 49ers. Happy Hispanic Heritage Month.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Happy Hispanic Heritage Month. It was, I don't know if y'all saw, but the 49ers put out a cool ass video. I thought that was pretty cool. But shout out to you guys, man. Super damn busy at work, haven't been able to record. And then Suneil hit us up, and I was like, I gotta jump on. Been doing a lot of overtime and stuff like that. So
stack that money, baby. Stack that money.
It's not really stacking, man. It's the government likes to take
it's
more
coming.
money.
They sure do. Hence, shout out to Nick Bosa for getting all the monies because the government's taking half for sure.
Yeah, he took my money.
Hey, but 49ers, I mean, there's a lot to talk about real quick before we get into the Week 2 matchup because you got to lead up to something. The 49ers did that leading up pretty darn well in Week 1, Faced off against the Pittsburgh Steelers, a 30-7 demolishing, really dominated the first half, didn't let much lead up go in the second half. Let's start with Suneil. What did you think about the Week 1 performance and what it means for the 49ers in Week 2?
So when I was watching the game, I was thinking about Marco. I was thinking about Rohan. And the reason why I was thinking about it was I was getting killed by you guys talking about the D-line depth. Y'all were saying, Suneil, the D-line has gotten worse. Suneil, the depth is so bad. I don't see how these people are going to beat anybody off the block the way that they're playing through the preseason. And I was like, yo, hold on.
All right, if you don't talk about that, talk about the O-line too, though, because we're talking about that.
Hey, let me get my bars off first, Marco, and then you can hit me. You can come with the rebuttals. But then I was like, yo, relax. When the big three are playing, all these boys are going to look that much better. And then we saw 49ers had a fat 5-sack game. 80% of those sacks came outside of the big three. They were making Drake Jackson look like he's about to be the sack leader in the game. Contavious Street, or was it? Yeah, he got him a sack. I'm just saying, I know that when it's just them on their own, the rotation kind of looks like funny money. But when you add those big three, the D-line was in there, getting all the pressures, all the sacks. So I was thinking about that because y'all were trashing me when I was like, the D-line is going to be good.
So I'm going to put a rebuttal out there real quick because, one, I just wrote an article.
It's 4 minutes in, and we got rebuttal number 1. Let's do it.
So the rebuttal number 1 is you said Drake Jackson, right? And then you also so for me, Drake Jackson had a good game. But after I watched it, he really didn't have as good as a game as I thought. 3 sacks, that's cool. But most of those sacks were effort sacks. 2 of them actually were. I rewatched it to write an article on him to see if that production is sustainable. I don't think it is. I'm not gonna say it's, but I'm not gonna say it's not because those effort sacks are gonna come when you're the 4th guy along the defensive line. So of course the 4th guy is gonna get his energy sack, right? Now the rest of the D line, I can't really evaluate because that's probably the worst offensive line I've ever seen play. Like legit, not even there was, bro. When have we seen Javon Kinlaw whoop an offensive guard so bad that he literally freezes and thinks it's a screen? Like that's how bad they were. So for me, I'm like, damn, like I don't know if we're that good or if the Steelers suck that bad. But I'm excited to see.
I'm banking it. We're that good, Marco. That's what I've been trying to tell you.
Hey, I hope we are. But we also told you that our own line was going to struggle, and you said Colton McKivitz is elite. You said Colton McKivitz.
Hold up, elite. Yo, nobody ever said elite. Don't put words in my mouth. I said Cole McKivitz is the first ballot Hall of Famer. Nobody said that kind of stuff, Marco.
Don't lie.
But also, if you're gonna sit there and relook at tape, look, is Cole McKivitz gonna have to go alongside TJ Watt down after down after down with no help? I personally think, look, Cole McKivitz obviously didn't look good, but name me a right tackle that looks good going up against TJ Watt. So to me, I'm looking at the D-line. I'm saying they're for real. I'm looking at Cole McKivitz, and I'm saying yet to be determined because I don't think anybody really looks good lining up against TJ Watt game after game. Now, we get to see the quality of defensive lineman he's going to face against the Rams is not TJ Watt. If he's still getting pushed around, the guys coming off of the right side are, getting sacks and getting to Brock Purdy, next week I'll take my L when it comes to Colton McKivitz. But I do expect McKivitz to have a much better game when he's not playing one of the top 3 defensive ends in the league, man.
Bro, Suneil just hit me with the hashtag fits my narrative.
Rohan, we hogging the mic right now. You tell us what you thought about week 1.
You see, this is why I come on this show. I just want to hear the nice back and forth. And here's what I'll say, because I do think that what the 2 debates you guys are talking about are 2 different debates. One is, how are the 49ers expected to perform in terms of, expectations, and is it good enough for them? The second debate is it good enough for them to win a Super Bowl? And I think that that's the 2 different lines that we are crossing. In week 1, the 49ers defensive line looked good. The reason it looked good was because of their 3-star players, and predominantly, really, their 2 interior guys. Arik Armstead had a hell of a game. It won't show up for anything, but you look at it. You want to look at flash plays and things like that. Drake Jackson's first sack was because of Arik Armstead. He comes in, he forces Kenny Pickett out of the pocket. Drake Jackson's able to use his athleticism to get to Kenny Pickett as he's flushing out of the pocket for the sack. The interception that Charvarius Ward got, who was in there getting the pressure, not allowing Kenny Pickett to have enough space to make that throw? Well, it was a terrible decision anyway, but it was Arik Armstead again, rushing that decision from Kenny Pickett, forcing the interception from Charvarius Ward. And those are just a couple of plays. I thought he did a great job stopping the run. Him, Javon Hargrave did a great job, clogging up the interior lanes. And this is why earlier, back in March, I advocated for a strength of the 3rd defensive lineman, that 3-down guy. And I know Suneil and I have done many shows about this topic. 3-down lineman, what it allows for you to do is, you have guys who can play every down, but who can make such an impact like this. Now, when if we're talking about the argument that we talked about last week in the depth for the defensive line, I mean, I don't think there's much of an argument that they showed too much. I think, you had 1 sack, I believe. I forget it was Kerry Hyder, I believe. But overall, I mean, the defensive line is solid because of the top 3 guys. And the other guys, while, they can certainly improve, it's not like they had phenomenal games, but the defensive line overall is what matters. And they had a really good game. You flip it over to the offensive line. I thought the left side had a good game. I did not think the right side had a good game. We talked about Colton McKivitz. Also thought Spencer Burford struggled in week 1. 3 penalties. One was negated, I believe. But he had a holding penalty. He had a crucial false start penalty where the 49ers were really just running out the clock, and Burford false started on a fake from Brock Purdy and things like that. So, and you want those things to improve. Honestly, I thought McKivitz had a better game than I expected, and it wasn't even that good when I initially watched it. Go back and watch it; it wasn't that great. You look at the run defense, the run blocking. I thought that was kind of also another area of worry. He gave up 5 pressures, 3 sacks to TJ Watt, the 2 forced fumbles. Obviously, you can make an argument, Brock Purdy, you want to get the ball out there sooner. But the issue to me on that right side, which the 49ers right now are just going to have to ride with the solution that they presented themselves with throughout the offseason, is you don't know exactly how well you're going to be able to compete down the line. But I mean, at the moment, I don't really care about that. I'm looking week to week, trying to figure out the matchups and things like that. But the argument for me was down the line, you go into a Super Bowl, who are you facing? You're going to face a TJ Watt-esque player because the top teams usually have top talent. And so that's why, even though, most TJ Watt gets around most players, it's the the number of times that he's able to do it, the number of times you're able to hold down TJ Watt. If you can hold him down for 60 plays out of 68 plays, that's a pretty darn good game, that kind of thing. But that's not that wasn't the case necessarily. And that's the main worry. But right now, the 49ers, I mean, the one thing that I'm confident in with this group is Kyle Shanahan and his ability to scheme around his offensive linemen. We've seen it time and time again where Shanahan has been able to scheme around the offensive linemen. That's why they've reached NFC Championship games with subpar players in certain positions and things like that. But I do think that there's definitely room for improvement in on that right side. And, I hope that doesn't happen. I really do. But there's room for improvement on that right side. I'm excited to see, especially through the next 4-ish weeks before the 49ers play the Cowboys, how that goes. But I do want to flip the switch and ask you guys a question because I'm a research guy. I like to do my research. And I watched glimpses of the Rams game before going back and watching it on film against the Seahawks. And certain alignment that I saw, which was kind of intriguing, go back and the stats corroborate it. Aaron Donald lining up over the tackles. People insinuate Aaron Donald as a defensive tackle, but the Rams in the last few seasons have been incorporating Aaron Donald over the tackle in that 3 down front, allowing, I believe it's Greg Gaines to be the nose tackle or somebody else to be the nose tackle, which then preoccupies Aaron Donald sometimes with double teams with the tackle and the guard, but also gets him favorable matchups on the outside. Aaron Donald might be going up against Colton McKivitz in this game. What do you think? Let's start with we went with Suneil first, so we'll start with Marco this time. What do you think about the matchup with Aaron Donald and the 49ers offensive line in week 2?
Before I get going, I want everyone listening, everyone tuned in, make sure you guys subscribe to Suneil Rohan's channel, and then come over to the Clet Gene Sports channel and subscribe. But I like what the Rams did there because you're trying to get your best players on the field at one time. Aaron Donald is probably the best defensive player in the league still. Like, as much as we want to say Nick Bosa is, like, Aaron Donald's up there. So what they're trying to do is just keep their best defensive players on the field, and that means moving Aaron Donald outside a little bit over tackles. I think it's going to be an interesting matchup. I think it actually favors Colton McKivitz just a tad bit, and the reason why I think so is because when you watch Colton McKivitz, when TJ Watt beat him, it was usually because it was a counter or it was because of pure speed off the edge. Now, Aaron Donald is extremely explosive off the edge. He's extremely powerful, but I think allowing Colton McKivitz to go up against a defensive tackle who isn't as long, and isn't as great with his hands on the outside as TJ Watt. And the reason why I say as great, because TJ Watt, he trains outside all day, every day. Aaron Donald trains inside for hand movement like that. So you're going to see a little bit of different matchup, and I think it should benefit Colton McKivitz, but I still think Aaron Donald's going to get his. I mean, when you look at who Aaron Donald is, he's going to get his. He's going to dominate his matchup majority of the time. So I feel like you're still going to continue to chip off the edge. If you leave Colton McKivitz one-on-one with Aaron Donald, you just got Brock Purdy just has to understand he doesn't have that kind of time, and he has to have a faster clock. So I think it's going to be an interesting matchup. I think in the run game is where you're going to see the 49ers struggle running to the right if he's matched up on Aaron Donald. Majority of the time, I think that's what's going to be concerning, because then if you start only being able to run to the left, things start getting tricky. You're kind of start losing half of your side of your offense. But honestly, I'm really not worried about what the defensive line brings from the Los Angeles Rams, because if I'm Kyle Shanahan, you scheme around Aaron Donald, you send 2 at him at all times. You send Burford and McKivitz at him. The only issue is, you're right, Burford struggled too. So those 2 going up against Aaron Donald, do they equal one player? I don't know. It's going to be an interesting matchup, but I think it actually benefits the 49ers this week because of Colton McKivitz being more of a power guy than a finesse guy. So I think it's going to be an interesting matchup, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Aaron Donald is still going to be Aaron Donald. Hopefully, McKivitz and Burford can channel their inner Daniel Brunskill, because we know that he always has a pretty good day when it comes against Aaron Donald. But, for me, I love it. Like, I want to see these types of matchups because ultimately, the 49ers offense is good enough to where their, right tackle and right guard don't need to be amazing, and the team can still put up 30 points and still the offense could look really, really good. So, but ultimately, like to Rohan's point, they do need to be showing progress and getting better, week after week after week. This is Cole McKivit's first year as a full-time starter. Burford still is a very young player, obviously in his second year. So that's the most, I guess you can say, obviously the least experienced side of the offensive line. So I think it's great that they have another challenge in Aaron Donald to be able to see what he's capable of. And I agree with everything Marco says, that the skills and the ability that Aaron Donald has, Cole McKivitz does have a better chance against him than he did against TJ Watt. Now, is that saying that I expect Colton McKivitz to dominate Aaron Donald? No, nobody dominates Aaron Donald unless you're Daniel Brunskill. But I do think that, we shouldn't see as many pressures. We shouldn't see, 3 sacks, forced fumbles, all that kind of stuff. They should be able to hold up. And Aaron Donald, like you said, is still going to get his, but it shouldn't be as dominant as what TJ Watt did. And if it is, then, like I said, I'm going to take my L next week when Marco calls me out on the offensive line. But to me, I have faith that Cole McKivitz is going to hold up much better. And ultimately, look, the running game still was able to get off what they needed to get off. The passing game looked good, and they still scored 30 points even with these issues, and even with TJ Watt having the type of success that he had. So they're figuring out ways to still score. And to me, what was most impressive about last week's game is that first drive, even though it was a short field because the defense was playing awesome, they were able to score. And that's something that score a touchdown, which is something that we haven't seen on a regular basis from the 49ers. They tend to struggle scoring in the first quarter, especially on that first drive. And if they could keep, doing that, where they're scoring really, really well in the first half, going into the first half with a lead, oh my God, that defense is going to continue that streak of shutting people out in, the second half of games. They did it last week, and they did it, pretty much every single game in the last half in that winning streak last year, and they're continuing what they started from last season. So to me, that's the winning equation right there. Take a lead into the second half and let your defense eat. To me, I think that's something that is sustainable regardless of which players are on that offensive line.
Hey, before you go, Rohan, I got to pull this up. So earlier, HR was like, everyone's going to be crying by week 8 when McKivitz gets pretty hurt. And then we got Sacktown Izzy in the house. Was like, hey, HR, before you leave, make sure you slap yourself.
Oh, no.
A little chat beef.
They're going at it in the chat. But Rohan, what's your thoughts on everything? Because I know you're an analytics guy. What do the analytics tell us?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at this kind of equation with the offensive line, right? The 49ers, I mean, we can pull up different cases in the past where the 49ers have gone by with better talent. And I do want to say, before I pull that up, I'm actually interested. 49er fans, for the first time, are defending their right tackle. Kyle Shanahan said some words about Colton McKivitz this week. I'll say this, and it's only a very select group of people. Kyle Shanahan said some words about Colton McKivitz this week, saying essentially how, he believes he'll improve in week 2. Not the best week 1, he'll improve in week 2. So I put that in an article, just a regular news article. I think I titled it like, did the 49ers, I think it was, did the 49ers make a mistake at right tackle? And then it alluded with Kyle Shanahan's words, didn't really give my opinion. And so many 49er fans in the comments were like, no, we did not. Comparing him to McGlinchey, thinking he's not, not that big of a downgrade from McGlinchey and things like that. Well, I mean, first of all, I admire 49er fans finally, defending a right tackle. But when you think about it overall, do I think the 49ers and do I think that they're sound at right tackle? Not necessarily. This has been one of my bigger gripes. This more importantly, the swing tackle position. But I do think that I do think you'll see this group improve, because Spencer Burford, I mean, year 2, you expect him to improve with time. Same with Colton McKivitz. I do think you expect them to improve. My biggest question, though, prior to the season, when we're looking, in a full season outlook rather than just week to week, is that unit going to be good enough and cohesive enough to win a Super Bowl? I don't know if that's the case. And I think that more so time will tell over these first 4 weeks, because when you look at the opponents that the 49ers face after week 2, and even in week 2, right, Aaron Donald's the true main pass rush threat. Week 3, you face the New York Giants. I'm not that confident in many of those pass rushers there. I mean, they've got some young, intriguing talent, but I'm not really that confident in how ready they are. Week 4, you got the Arizona Cardinals. Not, these are some matchups where you're hoping the offensive line gets some more cohesion and looks better than they did in Week 1. Yeah, looks better than they did in Week 1 because the big rude awakening is going to come in Week 5 when you're facing Micah Parsons and a pretty stacked defensive line there. I mean, it's not like Micah Parsons is alone. You got DeMarcus Lawrence there. You've got Torrance Armstrong, or I think it's Torrance Armstrong.
Terrence Armstrong, something like that. Torrance, something like that.
My bad. Yeah. But I mean, he had Dorrance Armstrong. There we go. He had 8 sacks last year. Pretty good guy again. And I mean, you got some nice interior guys there too. It's not like that team's any slouch. I think that's the main one that I'm looking at in terms of what the true wake-up call is for the 49ers. Am I sold on the offensive line at the moment, though? No. But I do think that there was some – I mean, the left side looked good, and the 49ers have schemed through their offensive line in the past, which is why I said at the beginning of the season, while I don't think this offense – I'm not as high on this offensive line as I was in 2021, where I had the 49ers ranked as a top – or preseason-wise ranked them as a top 12 offensive line. I think this group is hovering around that 12 to 15 range. I think that that's where they're going to even out to at the end of the year.
Yeah, I think they're finishing top 10 again.
I mean, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to do that, though, because as much as I want the Niners to be top 10, top 5 at everything, like replacing Mike McGlinchey with Colton McKivitz, Spencer Burford, taking on a full-time role. We also got to realize last year he was splitting the reps with Brunskill. So, like, was Brunskill helping him enough that we weren't seeing the poor play? Like, to me, I'm kind of questioning, like, okay, well, what did I see from him? I thought he was a Pro Bowl player. I thought he was going to move to right tackle and be a Pro Bowl level player. I still do think he is. I think he has the talent to do so. But when I'm looking at things, I'm like, okay, Colton McKivitz was pretty bad, even in the run game. Like, there was plays in the run game, I'm like, there's a big hole that Christian McCaffrey could have hit. But if Colton McKivitz sustains his block, it's a big play. So unfortunately he didn't. But we're going to week 2. We go to Levi South, projected to be 65% 49er fans there as always. Something light. What are your guys? Talk to me what you guys see going into Levi South. We'll go to Rohan first since we've been starting it off real quick.
I said this earlier this week, and I'm not one ever to really have bold predictions. I don't really mess with score predictions and stuff like that, but I've done them a little more recently, just for fun, kind of. But I'm pretty confident in the 49ers this week. The word that I used to describe it is dominance. I think the 49ers are going to have a dominant performance. And I was looking, first of all, odds-wise, I was just looking at the odds for fun, a few days ago. I saw the 49ers as 8.5-point favorites. That's pretty astounding. And the reason it's astounding is the 49ers are facing a team on the road that that team just beat another team, a division rival, 30-13. To come into that game as 8.5-point favorites with the over-under set not that high at 44.5 points, that tells you that odds makers and really the world right now believes in the 49ers significantly to where they think it's going to be a fairly, they're going to think it's a blowout, and it won't even be that high scoring of a blowout, meaning they have enough trust in that 49ers defense. But when you look at this matchup on paper, I do have a tough time just seeing overall how the Rams are going to overcome the 49ers. The only thing that I think can beat the 49ers in this game is their own selves. If it's some of those offensive drives where they sustain penalty after penalty, commit turnovers, lose the turnover battle in that way, kind of kill themselves by making poor decisions. That's the way that I think the 49ers lose this game. But when you look at them and the Rams on paper, there's a reason that, Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan, it's an 8-1 record in favor of Shanahan with the lone loss coming in the NFC Championship game. Even when Matthew Stafford's been in the race, he's been in there since 2021. The 49ers and the Rams have faced off 5 times. The 49ers have won all 4 of the regular season matchups. And the reason is the 49ers, outmatched the Rams in several capacities. You talk about the offensive line, defensive line discrepancy. The 49ers defensive line significantly outmatches the Rams offensive line, at least nowadays, especially over the last 2 years where they've lost Andrew Whitworth. They haven't really sustained much on the offensive line for themselves. It's tough then for Matthew Stafford to hang in the pocket for 3-4 seconds, deliver the downfield throws that he's accustomed to making. Even if they're difficult, tough window throws, he can make them, but you don't have the chance to do that against a smothering defensive line like the 49ers had. And so if they perform like they do in week 1, the Rams, it's going to be tough for them to get down, get chunk plays. And you usually need chunk plays in order to beat the 49ers. I believe my score prediction was 31-13. I think one of the scores comes off of one of those major issues for the 49ers where they give up a big play, a busted play kind of thing. And then that kind of leads to one of the scores. But I do think the 49ers dominate in this game offensively. If they execute the way that they did in week 1, at least in the first half, I don't find a way that the 49ers lose this one.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, the Rams obviously have a healthy Matt Stafford, which, obviously is a quarterback that I think is very good and can have problems, but who's he throwing to, right? The player that always, crushes
Don't
us.
disrespect Puka.
I mean, Puka's nice, but is he Cooper Kupp? Because Cooper Kupp is the player that always, we don't have a real solution for. And, in this game, injury is the solution for Cooper Kupp because he's not obviously going to be suited and playing. They obviously have 2 running backs there that both can get off. But, I think the 49ers with their linebackers showed something as far as, how they're going to be, what the game plan is in stopping the run. Those linebackers were getting in the backfield very, very quickly. I mean, Fred Warner was a heat-seeking missile. It was fun to watch the way that he played against the Steelers. And I think the Steelers actually have a better rushing attack than the Rams. Don't at me. But yeah, overall, I do. The reason why I'm so confident in the 49ers pretty much against anybody going through this season is the way that they were winning games last year. And the way that they started this season winning the game is the same equation. The defense puts the offense in good situations, and then Brock Purdy runs this offense the way that Kyle Shanahan wants him to run it. And it's just kind of like a work of art. Do I think Brock Purdy is a first ballot Hall of Famer? Not really, but I do think that Brock Purdy is the best quarterback that's been in this system because of his mobility, because he's willing to make the decisions that Kyle Shanahan wants him to make. And that's why this offense is continuously scoring 30-plus points when Brock Purdy is the quarterback, because he's more elusive than people give him credit for in the pocket. Even though, he'll have his few questionable throws, they haven't led to issues. Like, he still didn't throw an interception last week. And he's consistent with at least having at least 2 touchdowns, passing touchdowns per game. So to me, I know it's still a small sample size. We're talking about 8-9 games. But ultimately, eventually it's starting to be more of a trend. Like, people are waiting for him to fall off, and he's just not doing it. This offense looks great. The defense looks just as good, if not better, than last year. I mean, with all the turnovers that they're able to put, and if that's the equation, if the defenses continue to get 2+ turnovers and give the offense short fields with McCaffrey, with Debo, with Ayuk playing the way that he's playing, Kittle didn't even need to do anything last week. To me, they're beating everybody. Like, there's not anybody that could sustain that attack, especially when the drives are only 50, 60-yard drives that they need to do to get a touchdown. So to me, it's that equation that I'm confident in, regardless of who's the opponent on the opposite side. Marco, what do you think?
So I think the way the 49ers could lose this game is if Matthew Stafford gets enough time on a few passes, because we're going to get after that offensive line. They have a few rookies starting, I believe a rookie guard, Steve Avila. I believe the rest of the group is a similar group as last year, besides, I believe, Tremaine Ankrum, who's their left guard. But we're going to get after the quarterback. That's something we do as a 49ers defense. Now, what I'm looking at is, if you look at how the Rams attacked Seattle, they had a lot of explosive plays. I believe they had a 44-yarder to Tutu Atwell, a 30-yarder to Tyler Higbee, a 21-yarder to Puka, a 21-yarder to Bryson Hopkins. So like
A
they could
lot of
attack
explosive plays
a lot of explosive plays. Like to me, that's
and tight window
where
throws too. I'll say that.
yeah, and absolutely there were some ropes that Stafford had. He still has it. But for me, it's if we get beat deep, that's what could become concerning because once you start beating a defense deep, then you kind of have to adjust and then it kind of opens up the entire playbook for an offense. Now, I don't expect us to get beat deep, especially because our secondary has been pretty sound, but we know that Huff and Gibson could get beat deep. Like we've seen it. Tutu Atwell, he's a blazer. He runs a 4.3. Nuka, I believe, runs a 4.5, but his long speed is actually pretty good. So it all just depends on how the 49ers secondary holds up on the back end. If we're giving up explosives, then it could get tricky. I don't think they're going to be able to stop our run. Christian McCaffrey is a very good runner. He knows how to set up blocks. So I'm excited to see that. Their linebacking core is worse than it was last year. Their linebackers are Troy Reader and Jake Hummel. Never heard of those guys. They have Akilla Witherspoon. I don't think he's playing. He just got hurt. So, like, their secondary is kind of like, it's honestly an interesting team, but you're going on the road. It's a divisional matchup.
Are they, though?
I mean, technically, they're not. It's myself. It's a great point.
65% of tickets being sold to 49er fans.
And Marco, I want to ask you this because to me, everything you're pointing to is the 49ers have a great opportunity to make this team very one-dimensional.
Absolutely.
Because they're going to have a lead. I feel that they're going to have a lead because their defense is going to struggle stopping the 49er offense. So tell me, because it is going to end up being Matt Stafford's hands, I think they're going to, at one point, just forget about the run game and really just keep it in the hands of Matthew Stafford. Do you feel that Matthew Stafford has enough horses to where even, what we saw against Seattle clearly isn't the same defense. They don't have the same linebacking core that the 49ers have that could drop into coverage and kind of close out that middle where I felt like some of those bigger plays were happening. Wasn't really they were beating people over the top. It was kind of like those crosses down the middle and then end up like yakking their way into more yards. Do you feel like that Matt Stafford will be able to get that off with the way the 49ers play defense?
Yeah. I think Matthew Stafford is a high-level quarterback still. So he could beat you in multiple ways. They're going to stick with the run, in my opinion. I really think if you look at what they did against Seattle, they didn't care if they couldn't run the ball. They ran the ball for 2.3 yards, and they still ran the ball 40 times. Because what? It allows you to go off the play action. It allows you to do a bunch of different things. Hey, I'm going to take this call real quick.
Oh, that was real life.
Oh, I was thinking he was joking too, but I'll elaborate on what Marco is saying because when you set up the run, it's 49er fans, it's a very similar scheme that Kyle Shanahan's very familiar with. You set up the run or you set up the play action with the run. That's usually how the play action will work in this offense. The number one thing, Matthew Stafford showed that they could make explosive plays regardless of who was at receiver for the Los Angeles Rams in week 1. The number one thing is getting the time to do so. And also, when you look at the talent discrepancy with the Seahawks defense compared to the 49ers defense, I think that's another major thing. In that, when you talk about the Seahawks defense, right, they stopped the run to an accord. Kyron Williams had a good game, but Cam Akers only 29 yards on 22 carries. And the Rams were able to, dice him up in the air. 334 passing yards for Matthew Stafford, a number of big plays. I just don't think that success comes as much against the 49ers here, even with, questions around that third cornerback and whoever that might be. And overall with this defense, you've seen how they've been able to stop the run before.
And I think
on top of that, I think that, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was thinking more importantly, like we have to also give credit to how that game played out. Seattle couldn't stay on the field, their offense. So the Rams were getting a lot of opportunities on offense because Seattle was going a lot of 3 and out. So to Marco's point, you jumped in right at the right moment, man. Hope everything's good with the call. But the reason why the Rams didn't have to abandon the run was because Seattle couldn't score. right? So they never
Yeah.
got into a situation where they were really trying to catch up because they were in the lead, or the Seattle offense was just anemic, right? That's not going to be the case with the 49ers. The 49ers are going to be able to march down the field, are going to be able to score points. So to me, it's going to make the Rams very one-dimensional. Are they going to be able to have the same success when every single down has to be a passing down because they got into such a deep hole? To me, that's where I think this game is going to be much different than where they were with Seattle.
I would disagree though, because as an offensive coordinator, Sean McVay, as an offensive, when you're seeing that you're not running the ball and it's not successful at all throughout the, even if you're up, you want to go to like the pass. You want to just go to the pass. Like you're literally wasting plays at that point. They were so efficient on third down. I believe they were 11 for 17, like in like the 65% range. Like that's really efficient. So like looking at what they did, I think even if they're down 7, I think Sean McVay is going to run the ball. Why? Because it allows you to keep the game close. Even if, because what it does is essentially it kills the game. You make it a fast, quick game. And that actually benefits Seattle in the sense of, hey, one play goes our way, we could flip that game. You know what I mean? So I think they're going to stick to the run, even if they're only averaging 2 yards a pop. I think that's something that Sean McVay plans on doing throughout the entirety of the year because he knows he doesn't have the weapons. He knows he doesn't have the defense. And it allows your defense to get off the field. They're fresher legs. So it allows you to be more successful as an offense, as a team. So I think you're right. We are going to put up points. But if we score a quick touchdown, we a 5-minute drive, and they kill 4 or 5 minutes too, even if they're only moving the ball and they get 30 yards, they killed so much time in that process that they could buy themselves time to stick in this game. I think it's going to be I don't think it's going to be a blowout. Like a lot of people are saying like 30, 35, 10. I don't think it's going to be like that. It's a division game. Division games are usually lower scoring games, harder fought games. I think it's going to be a fun matchup. I think it's going to be a Aaron Donald who? Like we're going to be making fun of Aaron Donald because, it's fun to do. But for everyone that is tuned in, I had to take that call because it was actually Bobby Karan from ESPN Hawaii. I'll be on ESPN radio for next Thursday, so 9:16 Pacific Standard Time. So usually when he calls, I usually answer that. So my bad.
He's just big timing us right now. But I think this game is going to be really important, Rohan, because I think going into this season, we thought that the NFC West might be a little bit more competitive because we thought Seattle had taken a leap forward. We felt like with the Rams getting Matthew Stafford back, they're going to take a step forward. Obviously, we know that Arizona is, trying to tank for Caleb. So, but I think that them going 6-0 like they did last season in the NFC West, nobody thought that was possible. They thought maybe like 4-2, 5-1, maybe split with Seattle. But with the way Seattle looked against the Rams, if they come out and they just smash the Rams, they could really go 6-0 again and really have a great shot at not only dominating the NFC West, but also at that number 1 spot, right? For the NFC altogether, because the Eagles and Dallas are going to be beating each other up in that division. And everybody else, there aren't that many teams that are really showing that they're in that echelon of right now 49ers and Dallas. So I think this is the 49ers are going in. I know it is a divisional game, but even more like put a stamp. The Rams are the team that looks better than Seattle. If they go out and smash the Rams, maybe they shut down this NFC West real early where teams just know that they're not going to be able to compete with the Niners.
No, I think you're right. I think we're going to own the NFC West. I think the NFC West goes through the 49ers, but then you also got to look at the number 1 seed. We play a lot of great teams this year. We play Joe Burrow and the Bengals, the Baltimore Ravens. We already whipped on the Steelers in that division. And then you go into the other divisions. We play Dallas. We play the Giants. We play Eagles. There's at least 4 or 5 teams right there that are pretty damn good. Mm-hmm. They might not be in the echelon of the 49ers and Dallas, but those are some teams. So every game you got to put your foot on the neck and choke out the opponent. So this is a game that is a must-win game for the 49ers. If you drop this game, you do not win the number 1 seed in the NFC, and it's that clear. I think it's easily, if you drop this kind of game, whether it's to the Arizona Cardinals or the Los Angeles Rams, teams that have no business competing with you, you do not win the number 1 seed in the NFC. So this is a must-win for the 49ers, and I think they're going to dominate this game. I think they're going to put the game away early. I think they'll win by 10 due to fourth quarter stuff. I think the 49ers will eventually sub guys in, and what this is going to allow. Yes, Steve, the reason why I say must win is because if you lose any of these key matchups in the NFC West to teams that aren't good, like the Arizona Cardinals or the Los Angeles Rams, you do not get the number 1 seed. Any loss that is one of those ones that you should have guaranteed won, you do not win the number 1 seed. And you could laugh at the must win, but if you're falling to teams that you should beat, there's an issue.
Which sometimes the 49ers do early in the season. And Rohan, I want to ask you this before, because I know we got to wrap it up here pretty quickly. But even though, you're pretty confident that this is going to be a major win for the 49ers, and I think most people obviously feel that way, but what do you still want to learn from this game from the 49ers? What do you still want to see as far as progression for this team to give you that confidence? Because you seem not as sold yet that this is a Super Bowl caliber team. This team's going to win the Super Bowl. What I know, a lot of sentiment is already there that they've shown enough. What do you need to see to flip that to where you're more confident that this team can ultimately compete for a Super Bowl?
I was hoping you wouldn't ask that, because now we get into a little bit of the negative territory, and this is where the flame, the negativity usually comes from not only myself a little bit, but from people listening. Honestly, if I'm being totally honest, it still comes from this, like my hesitancy with the group still comes from the same area, and it's quarterback. It's right side of the offensive line. It's areas like that where you look at the teams, or where you look at the team, how they match up against true contenders, and you still have worries. And personally, I am still worried a little bit about our quarterback position. Now, do I think Brock Purdy has improved a little bit? I thought his first half was honestly I thought it was the best first half he'd had
I've ever seen him play.
That was one of the best first halves I've ever seen Brock Purdy play. The reason being, it's not just completing passes, getting it on target, getting it to his receivers, trusting his receivers downfield. It's not just all of that. The eye manipulation, it shows he's ahead of where he should be in his game, because he's able to move safeties, something a veteran could not do. He's able to move safeties to create throwing lanes. That's why last year, one of the things that impressed me about Brock Purdy that I thought could definitely get there and cement his status as a better quarterback than he was last year was his understanding of his limitations. Brock Purdy knows his arm strength. Brock Purdy knows who he is as a quarterback. And so he plays in a way that, that maximizes his talent, that is utilizing things like eye manipulation, trusting himself so much that he can throw with anticipation to receivers, things like that. And that's what I think is an improvement. But if you look at Super Bowl quarterbacks, unfortunately, I just don't believe that Brock Purdy's in that category. And I think that is truly going to be the number one thing that hurts the 49ers in winning a Super Bowl. I'm not saying making a Super Bowl. I'm not even saying, making an NFC championship. I'm not saying any of that. The 49ers could very well do that. I just don't know if they're going to have enough to get it entirely done with their quarterback play. I've mentioned it a lot of times before. You look at, the whole point of this 49ers philosophy, be it with Trey Lance or Brock Purdy, getting a rookie quarterback, cementing a strong team around a rookie quarterback. Well, that's all good. And it's proven in the last 6 years that, one guy on a rookie quarterback has made it to each of the last 6 Super Bowls. However, when you look at each of those quarterbacks, they're damn good quarterbacks. It's not like they're bad quarterbacks. They're top 10, at least top 10 quarterbacks in every year, including, Carson Wentz during his ACL tear year, including Jared Goff in 2018. These were top 10 quarterbacks. And I just don't know if Brock Purdy is going to reach that lane this year for me to be able to be comfortable. It's unfortunate. That's still my thoughts, despite the strong week one. And like I said, it was probably the best half of his career.
I'm glad you asked Rohan that before you asked. I got to answer that because I always come off as the negative one.
You
For
still
sure.
are. You still do.
The thing is, though, I thought Brock played really damn well as the first half. Second half, I thought they didn't really need to rely on Brock as much. I felt like that was one of those ones where, hey, let's run the ball out the rest of this game. We kind of got this put away. But when you look at how great Brock played, right, in the first half, right, and he played really damn well. But when you take a back seat and you take a look at the entirety of the game, you're gonna score a lot of points when you're getting the ball at the 45-yard line. Let's be real. Like I'm not like I'm trying to keep it as 100%. Like be real with everyone on what I see. There's a statistic. You guys can go out there and Google it. There's a statistic based off of a touchdown on any point of the field and where you're gonna score. And when you get the ball at the 45-yard line, your own 45-yard line, majority of the game, that percent is around 50 plus. Like it's super high. Like you really don't have to do much to score touchdowns. You don't have to do much to get a field goal range. Like realistically, you should be scoring every damn drive when your starting position is at the 45-yard line. And to me, that's a testament to the 49ers defense. Like that is just saying like the defense is so damn good. They're getting you the ball at the 45-yard line every single drive. And to me, I want to see. I'm not saying Brock can't do anything. I'm not saying that. But what I want to see is the 49ers have to drive from the 5-yard line. I want to see the 49ers have to go from their own 10 and go into the opposing territory. I want to see those kind of like those are what I want to see. I love the way he maneuvered with his eye movement, holding linebackers just enough, understanding he needs to throw with anticipation. Those are a lot of great quality things that I saw from Brock that I'm like, okay, well, that was pretty damn good. But then you also could go back and say, hey, Brock, you got to realize you got to move up in this pocket. You got to move. He had a couple of great pocket awareness plays where Minka Fitzpatrick's coming off the edge and he knew it, baited him into acting like he was going to go forward, spin move out to the left, beautiful throw to Deebo Samuel. So we saw a lot of high-level throws and high-level play from Brock Purdy, but we also saw some inaccurate where he got bowed out by some of his receivers. I mean, I'm just saying what I saw. I'm not saying, oh, Brock isn't good enough or anything, just from what I saw. But I'm very curious on what you saw, Suneil.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think anything you guys said are inaccurate other than, the fact that, hey, Brock Purdy still is able to look great with what is in front of him, mm-hmm. right? You only could play with the cards that are dealt. And sometimes I think, the defense is that good where he's always getting short fields. But look, we've had a defense this good with short fields that weren't putting up 30 points every single game. There's a difference with Brock Purdy there where this offense is a lot more efficient when he is the quarterback to me. So to me, I think that is a testament to Purdy. But what I saw from Brock Purdy was somebody who elevated his game, was somebody who did do some things that we haven't seen quarterbacks be able to do. I mean, that ball that he threw to Ayuk in the corner, it wasn't really a fade, but like back shoulder.
That wasn't a good back shoulder throw.
Well,
if we're being honest, it's the way. I know what you're saying, but I want to after you, I want to answer something.
Sure, but what I'm saying is like it was a ball that was either going to be caught by Ayuk or it wasn't going to lead to anything because he threw it when the defender wasn't even looking, right? So to me that's throws that he wasn't doing last season that he's at least attempting this year, which I think is his confidence and eventually that's going to lead to bigger and better plays because he's not being as timid. He's gotten those wings to kind of be a little bit more free as well. So to me, I just think that week after week, he's also a second-year quarterback. We're seeing progression in him as well. Does that mean he's going to be perfect every single game? No, he's still going to be a second-year quarterback and make little mistakes. But I do think that the elevation of his game and 17 games in, all the things that a lot of people were saying about Trey Lance, hey, give him 17 weeks as a starter, and by the end of the season, he's going to be the guy that could take you all the way. I think that Brock Purdy's shown enough to me that I could give him that same benefit of the doubt. Whatever limitations he have, I don't think it's limiting factor that he can't be a Super Bowl winning quarterback as long as that progression continues to happen week after week.
Yeah, and so I don't want this to come off as I'm nitpicking or anything like that, but The ball was in the air. Patrick Peterson turned his head. He turned it so when I'm watching this, I'm like, oh shit, it's either gonna be a broken up pass, or if Patrick Peterson is strong enough, he could get his hands on the ball. He turned his head, so they were running side to side, and then as Patrick Peterson realized, oh shit, we're side to side, back shoulder's coming. Starts looking for the back shoulder, it ends up right in between them. A back shoulder is supposed to literally be, for example, if I'm running a route on your back shoulder, so you're flipping your hips and you're catching it away from you. It wasn't that great of a back shoulder. I think he was more trying to throw a 50-50 ball. I don't know. That's me assuming, but a back shoulder is a back shoulder. So if you're running your route, the way Ayuk was running straight, the ball should be placed on his right shoulder. It was placed on his left. It was more inside. Now that is territory for anyone's ball. Now Brandon Ayuk is just a stud, out-muscled Patrick Peterson. Do me a favor, Patrick P. Don't ever come at Kyle Shanahan's offense that has tails stepping the wrong way. I mean, you do that, Kyle's going to come after you. And that's exactly what Kyle and Brock did. So, for me...
But, I mean, Brock Purdy right now does have the weapons where he could not be perfectly on target. But what I'm seeing is, you mentioned, what he came out this week or this last week was much better than anything you saw last season, right?
The first half. I don't think the second half was. First half.
But overall, the whole game was a better game than he's put together from previous seasons. I mean,
I would disagree. That's at least for me, because I know because you're going off a comment I said. First half, I thought it was the best I've ever seen him. I wouldn't say that about the second half. I'm going off of the first half.
Sure, but second half, he didn't get that many opportunities, he said, either. So it's not like he had a whole game to be able to do it. But what I'm saying is the progress is there, is all I'm saying. The whole point is I think that sometimes people don't treat him like he's a second-year quarterback because of all of the drama around Trey Lance and all that kind of stuff. He's still a second-year quarterback that obviously took a team to the NFC Championship. He has two playoff wins under his belt. He's been able to rise to the occasion on every single game that he started that he didn't end up like losing a elbow in. So to me, I think you give him the benefit of the doubt that we're seeing that not only is this team winning, it's not like they're squeaking by with him at the helm. And I do see progress in him. So to me, I know that he doesn't have the Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow type, offense as far as arm and all that kind of stuff, but he still has some elite qualities that I still think can lead this team to winning the Super Bowl. So I think that's just where we differ is like, I know Rohan just mentioned it. I feel like you're probably in that same camp. You don't think he's a Super Bowl caliber quarterback, like he could win a Super Bowl. I think in this circumstance and what he's shown, he can. And ultimately, he's going to have to evolve into a quarterback that doesn't have just a stacked roster and be able to still win. That's yet to be seen. But at least with this roster, I do think he's good enough for this team to win.
And I actually disagree with Rohan on that, though, because when you're running an offense how he's running it, like we saw Nick Foles win a damn Super Bowl. So it's like, I don't like to say a player can't do anything. Now, I don't think he's going to carry you to a Super Bowl. Like he's not going to.
Mahomes. He's not Mahomes.
I don't even like to compare him to Mahomes because, like, that's the best of the best. Right. Now, the reason why I evaluate Brock Purdy how I do is because of the fans. The fans put him up there with top quarterbacks.
Yeah.
If you go to, like, for example, I know a lot of people don't really care for Grant. I think Grant's a great guy. I love Grant. If you look at the polls he put out, people were saying he's better than Jalen Hurts, better than Joe Burrow. Like,
I don't know if you could take those seriously. I think people be trolling.
But if you're gonna troll, and those are legit. Like if you're gonna like legit questions, and people even do, they'll tweet about it. Oh, he's better than Mahomes. Since he's been a starter, his statistics have been better than. So it's like, okay, if we're gonna compare him to these guys, let's evaluate them like these guys. You know what I mean? Like that's how I'm looking. Like, okay, you want to compare them, then let's do it. Like, and I think that's a disadvantage to Brock, and I think that it's jacked up how fans have done that. But going into the game. What are you most excited to see week 2 49ers versus the Los Angeles Rams?
I just want to see the same competitiveness that I saw this team with. I think that both sides of the ball, there's a belief I feel in the locker room that this is the year, that this can be the year. Like this team is good enough to win. And I want to see that continue to go because I kind of mentioned, especially in the first half of the season, the 49ers tend to play down to the level of their opponents, right? And so this is a game where they're significantly better, right? Rohan said they're a favorite 8 points, but that's on the road. Usually the home team gets +3. So that means in actuality, they're favored +11 in this game. That's 2 scores, right? So that is huge. We want to see them dominate in that level, because to me, that's going to be the team that can win a Super Bowl, because they have the ability. They're not outmatched in any matchup this year, right? Even against their tougher competition, they're not going to be out talented by any roster that they ever face.
I would say that there's teams that are close to them, or like
sure.
neck to neck,
Yeah,
or whatever.
I'm not saying they're going to be better. I'm saying they're never going to be outmatched where they're playing a team that has way more talent than them. So it's always going to be about execution. So I want to see them just go out here, execute, and dominate a team that they should dominate, so that when it gets to that's all I want to learn from them. Hey, keep executing, make sure the game plan, put together 4 good quarters of play, score in the first half. Like, these are the things I want to see, because that's going to translate to when the competition is tougher and that margin of error is much smaller. You have to play close to relatively perfect to be able to win those games consistently, and you build off of these easy games to that point.
And I think to what you're saying too, like, I agree. I think the Cowboys and Eagles rosters are pretty stacked. Like, if you look at them, but the Eagles are getting hurt. Dallas is stacked. Their defense is ridiculous. Shout out to my guy Deron Bland from Modesto. Grew up with them. Went to middle school with them. A great guy. Shout out to him doing things on Sunday Night Football. I see you, man. But watching what every team has, to me, like, the biggest concern, and like you were saying, like, what I want to see is, I want to see Brock put in tough situations, because the reason why I'm skeptical and I'm holding out, like, I guess labeling Brock Purdy as like the top 10, top 15 guy, or like the quarterback for us and going in the future, is, bro, Jimmy G looked damn freaking good. Like, even going into 2019 season, I know people were like, oh, Jimmy G wasn't good that year. When you throw 20-something touchdowns, almost 4,000 yards, you take a team to the Super Bowl, like, he looked the part. Now, he wasn't throwing deep. He wasn't doing all the crazy things that the elite quarterbacks were doing, but he was doing exactly what Brock was doing, in the sense of winning games, running an efficient offense. Now, he threw a stupid bonehead turnover every once in a while, but hey, we could say the same thing about Brock. He put the ball in harm's way on Sunday, and to me, I want to see him do less of that. Patrick Peterson dropped an interception on him over the middle to George Kittle. So for me, I want to see him be put in tough situations where he has to whether bow the defense out, carry the offense, where it's just literally him lighting it up, to where I'm like, okay, we have him. Like, because he averages on average right now, he's averaging 220 yards a game. I think this is the game where he could come out and he could just light it up. And I think that's what I'm excited to see. And I think this is the biggest thing, like Kid Low does say, shout out to Kid Low. Jimmy was really solid. His price was just too high. Brock is better simply because of the price, in my opinion. And I think that is a great point to put when you look at the 49ers offense. Today's just a damn good day. My fiance, so I'm taking my cousins to watch Stanford, and we entered a raffle to take the kids onto the football field to the 50-yard line. I had my fiance hit the retweet button. I hit the retweet button. We actually won tickets, so I'm taking my little cousins onto the 50-yard line.
That's awesome, man.
That's
good, good news Friday for Marco. Hey, I love that.
So
but to kind of go off of your point and maybe sum it up a little bit. To me, I agree with you. We just want to continue to see this team look like a Super Bowl caliber team. With Brock Purdy, I will push back a little bit. I think that, him and Jimmy get put in the same category because the teams kind of felt like the teams were winning in spite of these quarterbacks. But I don't think Brock Purdy should get that label quite yet, right? Because he's actually doing things to make this team win. I mean, just from the eye test, I'm not breaking down the all 22s and all that kind of stuff. But this offense looks way more exciting when Brock Purdy is quarterback than any time that Jimmy G was quarterback. Even though Jimmy G had that 2019 run where they went, to the Super Bowl, I don't ever remember the offense looking this explosive and this dominant. And I think you got to give some credit to Brock Purdy, but I mean, obviously there's a lot of weapons on this offense too. So I get why there is hesitation, because I guess just the easy thing is any quarterback that's capable with the team around them and the play caller that he has is going to look this good. But I also think that's a little too harsh on Brock Purdy, because ultimately he is the quarterback in this situation and he's doing exactly what we need him to do to look this good. So I think he deserves credit there.
No, absolutely. Like I'm not trying to discredit. And that's the thing that's hard about talking the situation, because like I want to use the entirety of everything, right? Like that's just kind of how I am. And when I'm using the entirety of everything, I think it gets lost where it's like, oh, Marco's coming off as being negative. When realistically, I think Brock's done a phenomenal job. Like realistically, I really have. But I'm holding off my like labeling him as that guy.
Sure.
Because I've seen it.
Because people are already so quick to do it, right?
Well,
and
like,
that's
to me,
the bigger point.
What bothers me too is like, and this is more so going on a rant, not even talking about the game, which we'll get back to right now. One last question after that. But is like putting Brock Purdy in pictures with Joe Montana and Steve Young, and like the next GOAT is here. I'm like, why? We did that. You guys were calling. Everyone was calling in Jimmy Jesus at one point. Like, let's pump the brakes. Let's let him have a full season, and then we'll start calling him whatever the hell you guys want to call him. Brock, the goat Purdy. What if you guys want whatever? I'll call him. Like, to me, that's what's concerning. But I have to ask you, Suneil. Week 2, we always beat up on the Rams. Talk to me. What's your score prediction? Why do the 49ers win this game by big? Talk to me.
So, yeah, I have it 33-10, a dominant victory. I think it's going to be same. The reason why the 49ers win is because the same equation that they've been winning since Brock Purdy's been the quarterback. The defense is going to get turnovers, make life difficult for Matthew Stafford. We know Matthew Stafford is one to throw, multiple picks. I think we're going to see a multiple pick game with the way the secondary and linebacking core are being disruptive. I believe Nick Bosa is going to have a big game, because I don't think he wants somebody else to be leading him in sacks on the team. Even though I think he's happy for Drake Jackson, no way he wants to be 3-0'd by Drake Jackson. So I expect him to go out and eat as well. And I just think that TMW, bro, too many weapons, right? Brandon Ayuk, you can't guard Brandon Ayuk, Debo, Kittle, CMC. I think Ray is going to get some opportunities this game because of that like amazing effort he did on the CMC touchdown. I think that Kyle Shanahan is going to force feed him the ball because he deserves it after that type of hustle as well. So to me, I just think that the Rams are completely outmatched. I think that the 49ers, especially because of all the chaos this offseason, are extremely focused. I think Kyle Shanahan has done a phenomenal job getting these guys ready. This is the most prepared we've seen a 49er team under the Kyle Shanahan regime. So I think there's just a lot of things pointing in a positive direction, Marco, and I don't think the Rams are good enough to derail, what's going on. So I expect a very solid victory, and I actually think this game is over early. Like by halftime, we're already feeling comfortable that this game is done.
I think the score is going to end up being 28-14. I think it's going to be the Rams are going to get 2 touchdowns. Matthew Stafford is good enough to spot himself 14 points. When you look at the 49ers, I think they're going to dominate the game in the trenches. I think Kyle Shanahan's going to come out there, run the ball a lot. I think he's going to continue the recipe for success. Run the ball, play action with Brock Purdy. You literally know where you want to go with the ball. It allows you to allow Brock Purdy to throw with anticipation, do those extra stuff that he does well. The moment you start dropping him back as a pure passer is the moment you might see those deficiencies of Brock Purdy. So I think Kyle's going to keep him in a successful position. I think the 49ers are going to come out with the purpose. And I know you mentioned Kyle Shanahan, but I'm going to go a little bit further. I think the players are why they're ready. You heard Fred Warner come out and say yes, we took it upon ourselves to understand that we got to start faster than we have the first 2 seasons. And I think that's just the veterans and the captains leading this group. And I wouldn't even say Kyle Shanahan is the one doing that. I think that's the leaders of this team, and I think they're going to lead us to a victory. I'm not too sure on us seeing too many interceptions. I know you're going at 2. I don't know if Stafford throws 2. I think he might throw his 1 that he usually throws, but I think he's going to try to keep the ball very conservative, especially if it's a closer game. You won't see him try to push the ball down the field. It'll be check downs and take care of the ball.
But I have a question for you. What streak do you think is most likely to be broken this game? The Brock Purdy 2 touchdown game or the defense second half shutout streak?
I think Brock Purdy's 2 touchdown game. Because I think you're gonna see a heavy dose of Christian McCaffrey. I think you should see a heavy dose of Elijah Mitchell and Jordan Mason as well. The purpose should be getting to 40 to 45 rushes this game. There's no other. If I'm Kyle Shanahan, I'm saying, hey, I'm sorry, Brock. You threw 29 times last time. Let's get you down to 22 this week. Let's take care of you. There's no reason for him to throw much. Let's take care of that elbow a little bit more. Hey, that's nothing against you. You didn't do anything wrong. You're a great You're great at running my offense. We don't need you to score 35 points. Let's hold off. Week 3 is a Thursday night game, which is a quick turnaround.
Right.
Let's take care of your elbow. We don't know how it's going to react playing back-to-back games like this. Let's take care of you. So I would see, but the thing is too is the Niners come out gun blazing. They could throw 2 touchdowns hella fast. So like.
That's what I think. I think this game is over at halftime. I think this is one of those games where the fourth quarter we see some Sam Darnold action and some of the backups because of that Thursday night game. I really believe that actually both of those streaks stay intact. I think that Brock Purdy does get at least 2 touchdowns. I do think that the 49ers defense, well, maybe not because they're probably not going to play all their starters throughout the whole game. But as long as the starter's there, I don't think in the second half they're going to get scored on either. I think this is going to be a dominant victory, and they'll pack it up in the fourth quarter and, want to go out healthy into, their week 3 matchup on Thursday.
And I agree with you. I think pack it up early. Take your starters out. Kyle, don't play any of the starters in the fourth quarter. If you're up 20, that pissed me off last game. Christian McCaffrey should not be getting the ball up 20 late in the fourth quarter, especially Christian McCaffrey. Get your starters out, dude. Like, I don't get it. So hopefully we pack it up early. We get the starters out of off the field, and you let everyone else go with it. But I think if back to that question, I think it would be Brock Purdy's 2 touchdown game because I think you run the ball heavy, you pick up a lot of yards. I think at some point that's gonna break, and it's fine if it does. I mean, it's not you shouldn't overreact if it happens. Like it's bound to happen, either one of those. So don't. If you're a 49er fan, don't overreact. But if you are watching this, make sure you subscribe to So Real Suneil's channel. Make sure you subscribe to Clutch Gene Sports channel. Also, I know Rohan's not here, but you're probably from his channel. Make sure you go to subscribe to Rohan's channel. He was here with us. He had to go handle some business for school. He is a smart college-educated man. Got to get his degree. Suneil, any last comments, concerns, anything like that?
Nah, man, just enjoy it. Next week I'll be ready and prepared to take any L's that I might need to take. Based off of how the game goes. But I expect big victory. I expect all my predictions to come true, Marco, and I'm gonna be at your throat like always, brother.
Hey, you better be ready because if Aaron Donald gets one pressure on Cole Martinez, I'm coming for you. All right, you know what I'm saying? If the 49ers defense doesn't hold up, I'm coming for you. Even though I think they're gonna shut them out, I think it's gonna be a 14-point game. But it's gonna be a fun game, and make sure you guys enjoy it with family. Make sure you guys enjoy a nice cold drink. Drink responsibly. Enjoy the 49ers and Levi South. Thank you, Suneil, for jumping on. Everyone, peace out.